My name's Ross Robertson. I'm with Harp Enterprises. I'll be conducting your class this morning. Everybody should have with you a green state book. Inside there you'll find the voting machine guide, e-scan and e-slate, and an open and closed task sheet. Everybody have that? Probably have a lavender sheet as well. Ballot accountability statement. We'll be covering all of this in detail. I'll read the book to you, and we should be out in about 3 hours, if that works for you. How many new people do we have that's never done this before? Oh, good, not many. New people, don't feel overwhelmed because you're going to be working with people that have done this before. You do have a long day ahead of you. It's 12, 14-hour day. Make sure you bring something to drink and eat. It is on, but you're only going to hear it through there. It's only for TV. You want me to scream louder? Yes, please. Okay. Okay, make sure new people, because the people that's done this before knows this, bring you something to eat and drink on election day. You cannot have visitors to come. Once you're there, you cannot leave the polling location. What time do we arrive at the polls? 5. No later than 5:15, but be there at 5. It does take time to get everything up and running, correct? Yes. All right. Who sets up the equipment? Everybody?
One reads and one works.
Judges will be setting up the equipment. We want the two judges to work together. One judge will read, the other one will do the steps to get the equipment up and running. Sheriffs, make sure you're getting these out of the boxes and assembling the booths, making sure your totem poles are put up, right? Clerks, make sure when you get your precinct bag out, you check your roster book. You go through it, make sure it is your roster book. Be familiar with the people that have already voted absentee, that they're stamped in the book. Do you all send out a supplemental list?
I'm sorry.
Do you send out a supplemental absentee list?
Yes.
Yes. So you will be receiving, if anybody's voted after they packed the roster book and stamped the absentee voters, anybody that voted up to like 4 o'clock on Monday, the day before election, you will get a supplemental absentee list. You must take that and go through the book and make sure it's marked with absentee voters.
And do not mark them. No, we mark them.
Okay. Don't mark them, but keep that list handy. Because if a voter's voted absentee, are they allowed to vote on election day? No. Okay. Now, your green book. I'm not going to read this to you. I need you guys to read it and bring it back with you on election day. Okay? This is your hand guide for election day. The first part of the book is responsibilities of all election officials. Then it breaks it down into specific duties between judges, sheriffs, and clerks. Okay? Now, having said that though, this, if you follow this opening and closing task sheet, it's a checkoff list, if you will. This tells you exactly what to do. All right? And it's specific to your county. So make sure you have this with you and you use this as a guideline. For example, place all cones and outside signs and put up all signs inside and help judges set up the voting booths. That's those booths over there. That's the sheriffs. Judges, where do you get your key for the e-scan machine? Roster book. Okay. Together, 2 judges will use the machine guide. One reads, one does. You'll get the machines up. Clerks, open that precinct bag, remove all items completely. All right? Give the red official tally bag to the judges. All right? Make sure they have that handy. Open the roster book, make sure it is your roster book. Give the key to the judges for the machine. And we'll cover the closing part on the back page when the last voter is voted here in a little bit. All right? That's already covered most of this book in the front part. If you would, open your green book and jump with me over to page 17. Electronic poll books are going to be used in 5 precincts. I think you know who you are if you're using electronic poll books. You'll still have a backup roster book, paper roster book. All other precincts, all right, you're still using the roster book the same way. Eventually, the whole county will be on the electronic poll books sometime down the road. And I have to say that because things are easier with electronic poll books. The check-in process just makes it faster. But if you're still on the paper roster books that are being sent out to you, that's a lot of this material is covering that portion of it, okay? For example, on page 17, there's 5 types of identification: personal acquaintance, driver's license, other ID, social security, and credit card. You have to obtain one of those types of IDs from an individual when they're coming in to be processed, all right? Page 17 at the bottom. Okay? Now, what I'm sending you here for, make sure when you're doing this, clerks, that you're filling in the oval completely. Do not put a check or an X. And then clerks, make sure you're putting your initials over in that box. All right? The only time the clerk's initials will not go in that box by the ID type is if another election official personally knows that voter. Then their initials will go in there. Okay? Majority of the time it's going to be the clerks. Sample rosters are in your book on page 19. You have your Democratic sample and your Republican sample. If you would, turn over to page 20. Do you see these arrows going down? It's hard to read, but it's pointing to a word on there. That word is nonpartisan. Okay? This election, if you can look up here on the screen, the only thing that's running in the primary for this election is Republican and Democratic ballot. There is nothing on there that is nonpartisan. So if anybody comes into your polling location that is registered anything other than Republican or Democrat, do they have anything to vote for? No. They'll be considered nonpartisan. Likewise, if a person changed their political party affiliation after December 31st, they'll remain either Democrat or Republican, but they'll be listed as nonpartisan for this election. That's what this is referring to on page 20. It's very imperative, clerks, that if you see nonpartisan out by a person's name in the Democrat or Republican roster book, do they get to vote? Yes. No. If nonpartisan is by their name, they're considered nonpartisan. There is nothing for them to vote for. Yes?
You just said after December 31st, what?
The date?
Yeah.
Okay. If a person changed January of 2019, changed their party affiliation, they're too late to get it changed for this primary election. Okay? So the state will list them as nonpartisan in their old party affiliation, and they will be changed in the fall to the correct party affiliation. So if they are considered nonpartisan, they have nothing to vote for, okay? They're kind of in limbo for this election. Now, who gets to bear that bad news to these people? The clerks, okay? If you have to, keep this book handy and you can use this to show them, to back up what you're telling them, okay? Is that good for everyone?
That doesn't work, you call the police officer.
Anytime you have a disgruntled voter or somebody that's not happy, have the sheriff step them out of line, get them on the phone with the clerk's office, and they can explain it to them. At any point in time, if a voter is really unhappy for whatever reason, they can always come down to the clerk's office and have an immediate hearing with the County Board of Election. They're in session all day long. Okay? All right. Now, on page 24, this is probably where you were a while ago. Identification of voters. I've already went over these, but I do want to expand on number 5. That was new a couple of elections ago. They increased this to say any ID card with a picture and a signature of a voter, any Kentucky state government issued ID card with a picture, and any United States government issued ID card. So you basically have like 7 different types of identifications that you can accept for a voter. Can a voter vote if they don't have one of these? No. So don't ever let a voter sign your roster book unless you obtain what?
ID.
ID. Okay. Now, speaking of processing voters, what is the first thing that you want to ask a voter when they come in?
Party affiliation.
Party affiliation. You need to find out if they're Republican or Democrat. Voters are sensitive about this, aren't they? So you want to try and be discreet as possible, but it helps you get to the right book, Republican or Democrat, quickly. Next thing you need from that voter is what?
Name.
Name. So you can identify them in the book. Then you want one of those ID types. Once that's all obtained, you've got the party, you got the name, you got the ID. You'll fill in the oval by the ID type, you'll initial it, or it could be personal acquaintance from another election official initials it. Put your finger on their signature line, slide the book out so they know where to sign, and let them sign the book. They're processed. They're ready to go vote, correct?
No. Address.
Did you ask for it?
No, but you didn't either.
No, I didn't. Okay, so what do we need to do? We get party affiliation,
Give you that.
we get name, and we get an address. Why do we ask for an address? Because people move all the time, correct? You have to ask for the address. Don't give it to them out of the roster book. If you give it to them, they'll just say, yeah, that's right. They have to vote where a voter, he or she lives in their own precinct, okay? Always. So now we've got the name and party, address, ID type, and then they sign. Are they processed? They're ready to vote now, correct? Once you've done that. This happens all day long, correct? Without a hitch. Y'all act like this is a big process. It goes like that all day long with no problems, correct? Okay, if you would go to page 27 for me at the bottom. Here's some little scenarios, things that could happen. All right? So you ask for the party, you've got the party. You go into the book, you've asked for their name, you look up and down the Republican, you may even go over to the Democratic roster, look up and down, you cannot find their name. You go to a supplemental roster that's in the front of the roster book. There's nothing on there with that voter. What do? Call the clerk's office. Because we need to find out, is this a registered voter in your county? If they are, that's great. Are they at the right precinct? If a voter is not in your roster book, but they are a registered county voter, they're at the right precinct, you need the clerk's office to identify that for you. You don't want to take upon yourself, if they're standing at the wrong precinct and they belong to another precinct, don't take it upon yourselves to send them somewhere. Because if they're at the wrong precinct and you send them to another wrong precinct, how happy is that voter? Not very happy, right? Guess who's going to get a phone call? Julie, right? Okay, what we're trying to do is process voters, allow them the chance to vote, but we do need to make sure they're at the right precinct. So if they determine they are a county registered voter, they either tell you to send them to the right precinct, or they may be at the right precinct. Maybe they just moved and came into your precinct, all right? If that's the case and they're telling you it's okay for them to vote, Before they can vote, that voter has to fill out what? An oath of voter form, so we can capture the reason is change of address, get them in the right precinct on the right roster for the next election. All of these forms have to be signed and dated by election officials. Need a new registration card filled out so we can get their proper address put on here, right? And they have to sign one more thing at your precinct if they're not on the roster. What do they sign before they can go vote? Supplemental roster. We have to get their signature on there. Why do we have a voter sign a roster, period? So they get credit for voting. That's how they get credit, because all that information gets sent over to the state and they don't become inactive, right? So if we capture their signature, and it's important that we do, that gives them credit for voting. Okay, page 28 at the top. This is talking about typically females when they get married or divorced, their name on their driver's license. A lot of times when people get married or divorced, they will get a driver's license change. They fail to do voter registration, right? Now's the time to get that caught up to date. Give them a new registration card so they can fill that out with the proper name if it doesn't match their last name in the roster. Once that's done, then they can go ahead and sign the roster with their new name, and then they can be processed and they can go vote. All right. Page 28. This is talking about people that's moved with address changes. You're going to confirm that with the clerk's office. But then down at the bottom, this is also talking about individuals moving to different counties. Okay. Could be they move from here to another county or from another county into here. There's an important date on this page that you need to be aware of. The books closed Tuesday, April the 23rd here. They're closed all the way through May 27th. If an individual moved after the books have closed, they are allowed to vote one time and one time only in their old county. It could be another county, or if they moved from another county into here and they're standing in front of you because that is where the precinct they live in, but they did this after the books closed, you have to tell them they can vote one time and one time only back in their old county, okay? Or it could be another county sending them back over to you guys to vote. Likewise, if the individual moved to a different county, to or from, doesn't matter, before the books closed, they had time to register to vote. They're not allowed to vote in the new county they moved to or the old county they came from, okay? Guess who gets to tell them that? Right. And if they're not happy, what do? There you go. In both cases, though, if you have somebody that's moved in front of you, and it's one of those situations, give them a new voter registration card. So this can either be turned into the new county they're moving to for that clerk, or to your clerk if they're moving into this county. So we can get them registered and they're processed to vote for the next election. Now, let's jump over to page 30. This is talking about voters who needs assistance. Sometimes voters just need instructions on how to use the machine, whether you're using this machine or whatever, okay? Always refer a voter to a sample ballot, like the one on the screen up here, to instruct them what the ballot's made for, making selections. Tell them to always be careful if it's a vote for one, not to make any more than one choice. That's a whole different thing than voter needs assistance, meaning a voter may come in and actually need somebody to walk into a private voting area and help them to vote. Before somebody is allowed to go in with a voter and actually help them or assist them in voting, a voter assistance form must be filled out. This has to occur before anybody goes into the private voting area with them. The top portion is information on the voter, Then we have a section here that says the oath for why they're needing assistance. It has to be one of three categories. They are either blind, physically disabled, or they have the inability to read or write English. One of those three categories. Then in the middle, it's the person assisting the voter. We need to capture their signature. They either brought someone with them, or if they have no one with them, who assists the voter? Both judges have to do this, and they both have to sign. Then it has to be signed and dated by a precinct election officer. There is a section down here called Application Request for Permanent Assistance. Only two categories apply for permanent assistance: blindness or physical disability. If someone has already applied and they've been granted by the County Board of Election here in Oldham County, by their name in the roster book, it'll have a PA for permanent assistance. So if somebody comes in and you're processing them and by their name you see PA, permanent assistance, does this form have to be filled out? No. Yes. Every single time that form must be filled out when somebody goes into the voting booth. All right, every time. Now, that voter is relieved from filling the form out. You guys have to fill it out, capturing the information on the voter. And then, most importantly, we want the signature of who is assisting that voter. Either they brought someone with them, or the two judges will sign this. Is everybody clear on this? This is in your book on page 30. Okay? And it also is in your book on page 31, Application for Permanent Assistance. Please read this. I don't try to trick you when I ask that question, but every single class I do, I ask, does that have to be filled out when somebody's marked for permanent assistance? I get the same answer, no. The answer is yes. Okay. Now, pages 33 through 34 is Voter Disability Awareness Guidelines. It's great information. You all have no certified challengers. That's a good thing. All right, I'm going to skip over here to page 38, electioneering. Am I going too fast? Okay. Page 38. From the outside of your precinct, out how many feet is no electioneering? 100 feet. Now, from the outside of their precinct, 100 feet out, no electioneering. 100. It changed.
It says 100.
It changed.
They changed it back.
It went from 100 to 300 to 0 back to 100 in a year and a half. 100 feet, okay? No electioneering. Now, electioneering can also happen inside your polling location, correct? It could happen, but it's not supposed to. If it ever does, who manages that? The sheriff. And everything that's out of the ordinary, any exceptions on election day gets posted in what? Sheriff's Precinct Report, SBE 53. Must be filled out and signed by the sheriff and turned in. If somebody walks into your precinct and they're wearing a shirt, cap, pin, button, anything that has campaign information on it, could say Republican, Democrat, MAGA hat, pretty popular, right? If somebody wears that into your polling location, are they allowed in there with that? Yes, just to vote, but they cannot use any of that to electioneer with. They can't stand in line and say you should vote for this party or this candidate or that. That's construed as electioneering, and you need to stop it. You need to get their name and write it up in the sheriff's report, correct? Okay. Are you guys allowed to wear anything that has campaign information on it? No. Nothing. Okay? No hats, pins, buttons, shirts, anything that has campaign information on it. Are you allowed to be reading a newspaper that could have a campaign ad on it? No. All right, 39, exit polling. Exit polling is allowed in the state of Kentucky. Somebody could be stationed right out your precinct door conducting interviews with voters after they have voted. They're not allowed to stop them on the way in to vote, but after they voted, they can conduct an interview. It's up to the voter if they want to be interviewed or not. Prohibition against checkoff list. The only person that is allowed to do a checkoff list is a certified challenger. You have none. But that also means you guys cannot keep a checkoff list. And what I mean by that is if you're a clerk and you're looking at the roster book and your friends or families or neighbors are on that roster, but you notice they haven't voted, you are not allowed to make a phone call out and say, hey, I noticed you haven't voted, you need to get down here and vote. That is construed as a checkoff list. Don't do that, okay? And I don't want to hear if you've done that. All right. The rest of the book is your election emergency contingency plan. That will be in your supply bag already filled out by the county in there. Please view it and be familiar with it. The last thing you want to do is have a real emergency and not know what to do, okay? Now, the rest of the book is election crimes. I never cover that. Please read through them, be familiar with them. Then there's samples in the back of this book of all the forms that you'll be using and filling out and how to fill them out. Are there any questions on the material for the book? Before I get into a quick thing with the machine training. Yes, ma'am.
What if you have someone who's in voting and they say, you know, has my husband voted? I mean, a lot of times it's listed one after another. They're going to see it in the book. They might ask, hey, has my mom come in yet? Maybe that's different. Are they allowed to look? Is that considered?
No.
Okay.
The question was if somebody comes into the polling location and says, has my family member, a mom or dad or anybody been here, don't give that information out. She'd already told you that even the parties calling in for information like that, you're not allowed to give that information out. Another thing you're not allowed to give out is if they call in and say, how many people's voted, like your public counter numbers on your machines, you can't give that information out as well, okay? Understand that all the information that's occurring on election day, even the results that night when you're taping those on the door, everything is unofficial results until they're certified by your county board of elections and then the state certifies them. So don't give information out, all right? It's okay if somebody's calling to say, what's the turnout? You can always say it's low, medium, or high. That's okay. But don't give numbers. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, in our precinct, we have an elected official that wants to pull up a chair and have a powwow. What do we tell this person?
The elected official,
Well, he's a magistrate. What's the question?
Well, that's very easy to address. Number one.
would you repeat the question so they all?
He has somebody, and it happens to be an elected official, but it doesn't matter if it's an elected official or your neighbor or somebody from your church. You are not allowed to be in the polling place except to cast your vote and leave. And that's very easy to do. And I'll be honest, I'm not a real shy person about these things. If you have somebody, all you have to do is call me, and I will make sure that they know that they cannot do that. Vote and get out. Except for you all. You all stay. Okay.
And just to expand on that a little bit, inside your book, there's a couple pages that describe who is and who isn't allowed inside your polling location, besides you guys, okay? Read through those. It's self-explanatory in there if you read it. If you need to, open that up and show somebody, look, you cannot be here, all right? And if it persists, call them and they'll send down the local sheriff and escort them out if need be. Yes?
And this might be addressed, I just didn't look it up. And you said no visitors, which makes sense. But let's say we wanted to have pizza delivered. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay.
You can have pizza delivered. If the pizza person is your son, daughter, or friend or whatever, they can't hang around. They drop the pizza off, you pay them, and they leave, all right? Okay.
I don't think you covered cell phones.
Cell phones?
Yeah.
I believe your county allows for you all to have cell phones. I let each county and county board handle that. If they're allowing you to have your cell phones, please be courteous to the voters. Don't be hanging out on your cell phone, okay? Taking a call while voters coming in and you're trying to work with them. Your job is to help voters vote and get voted, not to,
I
not
don't mean us, I mean them.
them. There is no,
Pictures of people in the
Well,
voting.
and I've got the executive director from the State Board of Elections. I'm trying to get a clarification.
Okay, thank you.
And he said he'll get back to me in about 10 minutes.
okay. So if you get that, so let me cover this real quick. Cell phones, we cannot tell a voter that they can't have their cell phone with them. There's no law to prohibit cell phones. We typically put signs up with no cell phones. That's to discourage a voter not using it. Now, a voter can't be standing in line disturbing other voters. You can ask them to either quieten down or turn their cell phone off. Nobody, not even news media, if they are coming in, is allowed to process a voter or take pictures of a voter in the act of voting. All right? Is that good? So you couldn't stand in line as a voter and call out and say, hey, who should I be voting for? You're not allowed to do that. So the sheriff should stop that. But if they're quietly on the cell phone taking a phone call or making one and they're not disturbing anybody, leave them alone. All right? Now, hold on. Hold on one second. In the voting booth, in the general and the primary, there was a section in there called ballot selfies. For whatever reason, it's removed in this book, and we just caught it this morning that it's not in there. So she's calling the state board to get clarification. Was this a mistake that it was pulled out, or was it intentional, and what the reason for it was? And if they get back to her in the next 10, 15 minutes before we dismiss, we'll let you know, okay?
Talking about talking on the phone in their voting station.
There's nothing that we can do.
We can't do anything about that. If they're not disturbing other voters, or they're not talking about candidates, or
You know, I don't like that, so-and-so that's running for, this, you gotta shut that down, because that is,
That's all
you cannot legislate common courtesy or common sense. So, it is what it is. However, there is specific law that says that does address electioneering, and that is a form of electioneering. So you do have a right by Kentucky statute to shut that down. Now, if they're talking about, hey, when you get home, you better get that vacuuming done, or, I'm gonna get a divorce, we don't care. But electioneering, we do have a problem with.
yes.
Okay, the issue that we had in our precinct last election was that there was a high school teacher that assigned the kids to have to go with their parents to the polling booth. They couldn't vote, so they had to take a picture of their parents voting. That was the homework assignment.
That is against the law.
Right.
You can take a
And
picture.
We tried to make stuff happen, but kind of like the kid sticker. If we could even have like a spot that said, like a sign away from voting that says.
We don't
"I
need a
voted."
sign. We have sheriffs in the precincts that say you are not allowed by Kentucky law to take a picture of another voter.
Right.
And as of this moment, we are getting guidance if selfies are even allowed. So it's easy, and there is a sign, but you have,
So-
there's no buts.
Common sense, right here.
Well, we were like, take a picture of the flag on the door. Like even if we just had a sign that said, we voted, and that you could.
Common sense here, though. You're all going to be giving stickers out. Tell the parent to put a sticker on, walk outside, and the kid can take a picture of them with the I voted sticker right at the polling location. Send the email to the teachers, if you know them, and say, this isn't allowed, we can't allow kids in doing this. Minors are allowed in the precincts, by the way, with parents, but even minors cannot take pictures of somebody voting. It's against the law. Black and white, clean out.
I'm sorry.
What clarification?
The clarification, the clarification that I'm waiting for is it still okay for you to take a selfie of yourself with a ballot? It was in the book last year, it is not there this year, so we don't know if a reg has changed. The fact that you cannot take a picture of another voter, and that has not changed. And it still applies to your children taking a picture of you voting. You can't do that. You cannot take a picture or disclose an image of another voter in the polling location, no matter who asks them to do that. It is against the law. So that's when the sheriff steps in and says, I'm sorry, you cannot do that. As soon as Jared Deering lets me know if the regs have changed on ballot selfies, I'll let you know. But we just caught that this morning, and I've just been waiting for, they've all been in a meeting this morning, so he just now got my message. So that's all that we know about ballot selfies, is that it's not in the book, it was before. I'm trying to get, because everybody wants to do it, and personally, I don't have a problem with it if the law says it's okay. Yes.
Well, what we had a problem with last year, and we shut it down, we didn't let it happen, but for some of these people who are new, they might appreciate it, is we had mom and dad come in to vote, they bring in their child voting for the first time, they want to take a picture of the kid.
You can't do that.
I know it, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, that actually happened, we shut it down.
If the kid's voting for the first time, and to my knowledge, nothing's changed, Supreme Court upheld it, they can take a ballot selfie. But another individual, it's against the law for another individual to take a picture of somebody voting, period. And we can harp on this all day long, which I don't want to, because I'm trying to get you guys out of here.
It boils down to one thing. At this point, no one can take a picture of anyone in the polling location. I suspect that the executive director is going to say ballot selfies are still okay, but I don't know. So if you're taking a picture of yourself, at this point, I'm thinking it's probably going to be okay. But if they made a law change or a reg change and it wasn't in there, and I'm going to tell you there's been no notification to the clerks about that, and that's a pretty big one.
I think it was just left out inadvertently. And the reason I say that law change that happened in Kentucky was a national change. Every county in every state was affected by it because it came down from the U.S. Supreme Court on ballot selfies. I think it was just left out unintentionally.
What's this, on the duties of the precinct sheriff, the third item here?
What's it say, ma'am?
It says, voters may have cell phones in their possessions and take ballot selfies in accordance with 31 KAR 4170. What's that?
That's what we're.
11.
But there's usually a section in the book that breaks that down specifically on selfies, and it doesn't have it. Okay.
The third duty.
If we don't
July
get the
6th.
answer today, are
Let's-
you gonna,
If you do not get an answer before you leave today, assume that ballot selfies are okay. Okay? Yes, sir.
If they're using the cell phone as a checklist, special interest groups tell them who they want them to vote for this time, who not to vote for, and they're using that while they're sitting in the voting electronic area. Is that okay?
I don't think I followed that.
Check off list.
What,
Yeah. You wouldn't know.
can you say that one again? I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you're asking.
Okay, so they've got their smartphone or any phone. They've got a checklist. Some national group tells you who they do not want you to vote for and who they want you to vote for this time. And so they're using that as a checklist. The NRA, I'll just throw that out. Sorry.
Okay, so you're saying
But there's other groups, left and right.
so you're saying a person has their cell phone out and they're inside a private voting area and they're using that.
They're voting, they're sitting in
How do you know what they're doing?
I hear them talking, and mentioned something before they went in.
Okay, she's already covered this once, and we'll cover it again. Nobody is allowed to talk about candidates or campaign stuff using their cell phones.
How many of
That's a form of electioneering.
Who's a sheriff? Okay. Your duties are laid out on page 11, and it does in one of the duties, and it says you can do it. It's simple. We're making it much tougher and asking about all these situations that hypothetically could come up. If something comes up that's outside of what's labeled as your duty, call. And it does say that they can do ballot selfies. I guess since it's the second year, they didn't have a
special section for it.
Ballot selfies are okay. So what is a selfie? You stand there with your ballot, you take a picture of you with your ballot. Anything else is prohibited. Okay? Yes?
I don't mean to make this more difficult, but let's say they do take that picture. What do we do? We say, you gotta delete that?
No, it's allowed.
No, I'm talking about the prohibited picture. Let's say they take a prohibited picture. And we go to them and we say, you gotta delete that?
No, you can't do that. What you do is get their name, write it up in the sheriff's report, and it's turned over to the Attorney General's office for investigation.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all you're allowed to do.
Let's go to the next item.
Okay, let's move on. Let's get into the machine training, all right? So I can get you guys out here. The key to this machine is found in the roster book. The clerks will give it to the judges. The judges, one reads, one does. It's going to tell you to unlock this lid, remove the lid, place it out of the way where no one can step on it. Make sure that you're validating all the information on this verification form that's found on top. It's a must do. One judge will read it. The precinct name, serial number, and the seal numbers, validate it. Starting PVT counter number, validate it. You cannot do that until the machine's powered up and running though. Judges initial off on it. At the end of the night, you must record the ending PVT number off each device, okay? That's your job as judges. Once all this has been validated, place this inside your eScan tally tape envelope that'll be found in your supply bag or in the tally bag. I'm not positive where they put it, but you will have one of these for each machine. Now, with cutters or scissors found in your supply bag, cut the seal off. Anytime we cut seals off or break them off, what do we do with them? Put them in this bag, okay? With that cut off, take the key, unlock the side of the tub. In the base, you'll find a ballot bag with your ballots in it. You also have a ballot accountability sheet laying on top of these ballots. While I'm here real quick, they'll already have Republican and Democrat how many pads were sent to your precinct. They'll give you the starting serial number for each pad. And what I mean by that, if you have 3 pads of Republican and 3 pads of Democrat, they will mark them Republican, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. You grab pad number 1. That serial number on pad number 1 will be recorded for you. At the end of the night, the judges have to record the ending serial number. That's the next ballot that you would be giving out if another voter was voting. You just find that serial number that matches to that ballot and you record it. Simple math tells you how many ballots were used during election day, correct? All right, at the end of the election, make sure you're getting that ending number. Throughout the day, if you have any spoiled ballots, you have to record Republican and Democrat spoiled ballots. Judge's job. At the end of the night, after all this is done, all 4 election officials sign this. Any questions? Okay. The power supply for this unit will be found in the storage drawer in here. In the base, you will have a privacy screen. Do not forget it. And if I'm not, you put bright green tape on there, right?
Reflective orange.
Reflective orange. So you can't miss it now. You see reflective orange down there, you grab it, pull it out. Before you lock this and seal it, make sure this is completely empty. Do not remove the storage drawer in here. It has to stay in. In your instructions, it will tell you to place this power brick on a working outlet first. Plug it into the outlet. You know it's working because you have a green light. Lay this in the back of the tub. Look at your on-off switch. Make sure it is in the off position. Then you can plug this into the port. It's called a DC port. Turn the switch on. See a red light? It powers on. I tell people not to put this on here until the machine's totally up and running. Why? Because you may have forgot something in there. And if you've already sealed it, then you have to cut the seal off. Then you have to call the clerk's office and you have to write it up in the sheriff's report and all that, correct? So make sure everything's up and ready and this tub's empty before you lock and seal it. Does this have to be on during the election, during the day? Yes. Okay, in your machine guide, on page 3 at the bottom, we've made little changes to this. We boldly printed and highlighted in here something called print zero tape. If you're going step by step, you're not going to miss this, are you? It comes up and it says open the poser print zero. What am I going to do? Print a zero, always, okay? You only get one chance. Why is that important? You want to make sure all the candidates' names have zeros by them before you start the election, right? When this finishes, it's going to come up and say open pose print zero. Now I can hit open pose. It wants a password. What's a password? New people. How did they know this? It's in the book. If you read it step by step, you're going to get it. 6 ones. Do what?
That's a super safe password, y'all.
Well, I know that sounds funny, but we've used 6 ones to open and close with for a long time. We used to get creative with it, and guess how many phone calls we get? A lot. All right, when this is finished, it'll say ready to scan. Take your tape, pull up on it, tear it off, and that gives you plenty of room at the bottom for what? All signatures. Everybody has to sign it. Then you will place this into that respective envelope, your eScan envelope. Folks, please use these. Opening pose zero tape, mark it off. At the end of the night, you'll have closed pose tapes, mark it off. Your MBB card that the judges will pull out of the machines at the end of the night, put them in here, mark it off. That way you know you did not forget anything, correct?
And I'm going to ask everybody, like we do every election, open that eScan first. Because that's what 99.99% of the people want to vote on. Get that up first, it's quick, and that's what you're going to utilize, and then you can kind of take it on and get the e-slate open.
All right, notice I put the privacy screen on, I put the blue seal on, I'm ready to go. The key, put it in the pouch on your red tally tape envelope, okay, or results tape, or results envelope. Just put it in the pouch, that way you won't forget where it's at. Now, the other machine. This will be in a black bag. You'll have to get it out. It's going to have a pink verification form. You have to do the same thing, right? Once you have this out and you've validated it and you've assembled the booth and put it together, it looks like that. You need to connect the gray cable from this end to that end. It's red to red, black to black. It's all described in your booklet, pictures and all that. Step by step, you can't go wrong. Plug this into a working outlet. As soon as you plug it in the back, there's no on and off switch. This will start and this will start as well. Again, when this comes up, it says booth assignment. Proceed to booth number 1. You walk over. This is a must. You have to do this. Physically walk over and hit the enter button until you get a yellow box around 01. That means this booth has been assigned and it's talking to this now, back and forth. If you miss that step, you have to unplug it, plug it back in, walk over, assign the booth. Because if you don't do that, nobody can use that booth, all right, if it's not assigned. All right, when you're finished, come back over here, say done, next, open, pose, or print 0 tape. What do I do? Always. One chance only. When that finishes, you can hit the button that says open pose. It wants a password. What's that difficult password? 6 ones. Say accept. Got a digital tablet. We're good. We're good over here now. Once the tape's done, pull the tape up, tear it off. Everybody signs it. You will place it inside your E-Slate tally tape envelope. Mark it off. Any questions? Last steps, you'll hang the headphones over the top of this. Before you do, it's always best to put this up to your ear, hit the select wheel, roll it. You'll hear a voice in there. Make sure this is turned to the lowest volume. That way, if somebody does use this and they're not using the headphones, somebody cannot hear how they're voting. Okay, because if that's the highest volume and somebody's near them, you can hear how they're voting. We don't want that. Then your privacy screens drop down and they tab down. For this demonstration, I always leave them up. All right, quickly, I want to go through one scenario with you, if I can find my sheet. Oh, I put it over here, actually. Judges will be passing these out to voters, correct? Clerk processes them in. They'll send them over to a judge. Ballot judge will hand either a Republican or Democratic ballot to a voter. Voter goes into a private voting area. They fill out their ballot. As soon as they step out, a judge should greet them if they're using paper ballots and say, place your ballot face down right here. Show them where it goes and then step out there. It's a private voting area. The reason you do that is so the voter will not try and stick this in underneath or in the side where it says stub and spoil ballots over here. Because people will try and do weird things with ballots because they don't know to do this, all right? Now, I intentionally overvoted this ballot because I wanted to show you something. Overvote means it's a vote for one and I made 2 choices, so it's going to spit it out. If a ballot spits out and the voter tells you, the judge, hey, this spit my ballot out, tell them to simply turn it over and try it the other way. If it rejects it again, ask them to read to you what it says on the screen. In this case, it says governor and lieutenant governor contest is overvoted. You as a judge have to instruct them. They have a choice here. 2 choices. One is we can spoil the ballot and reissue a new ballot to the voter. The other one is they can cast the ballot the way it is. If they choose to do that, tell them to read on the screen where it says cast ballot and hit the button right by the word cast ballot and it'll accept their ballot. If they choose to have the ballot spoiled and have you reissue a new ballot to them, ask them to trifold the ballot. They will have to do this. You're not allowed to touch the ballot once you give it to a voter. Ask them to show you the top right corner so you can see if it's a Republican or Democratic ballot so you can reissue the correct ballot to them. All right? If they are uncomfortable doing this, say, okay, give them a spoiled ballot envelope, ask them to fold it and put it in here. They can lick and seal it or just tuck it. It has to go into the side of the tub where it says stub and spoiled ballots. Walk them over to the clerk's table. Ask how that voter was registered, Republican or Democrat, so you can reissue the same like ballot to them. Go to your accountability statement, your lavender, and mark spoiled ballot, either Republican or Democrat, so you have a good record of it. All right? Any questions? All right. Easy election, not much on it. You probably won't have a lot of overvotes in this one, but sometimes people don't read and they'll make too many choices. It happens. If a voter does spoil a ballot, how many ballots is a voter allowed to receive up to before they're finished? 3. 3 total, and then they're done. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to make sure that for the new people, I know it sounds scary. It's really not. There's just a lot of information, but you are with people that have worked before. And if we break a 20% turnout in this county, I will be shocked. There are some that are looking at maybe 10. I was talking to certain clerks and they're thinking 10. So it's going to be a very, very light turnout. I hate that, but we can't make people go. I just want to caution you that people, I always put the ballot in the paper the week before the election. People can actually bring that in, because people do get nervous when they come in. They can mark it at home, bring it in, but they can't leave that. So always remember, we don't care if you have a D or an R by your name. We don't care. We just want people to come out and vote, and we treat everybody with courtesies, and we go from there. So we want to assist them, but we have to do it all within the parameters of the law, because if Julie Barr is going to go down, it's going to be over gajillions of dollars, and they're going to find me on a nice sunny beach someplace with a pretty cocktail. So no, just kidding. But really, this is pretty serious stuff. So we assist everybody the best we can within the parameters of the law. And let's be honest, today everybody wants what they want, when they want it, and how they want it, but we can't do that. We have to operate in this little space right here. So just be patient and understand that this may be a new experience for some, and so we'll help people get through. And I mean, honestly, you really don't know. We've filtered a lot of calls before they even get to you, and some of them we just kind of shake our heads. So we get it. We aren't in a public location, but we get them beforehand. So just do the very best you can and help each other out, even if it's not your job. Help each other out, because a lot of you, Mr. Knapp, how many positions have you worked? Have you been pretty much all of them? So, and Mr. Knapp is not a
Smart guy.
well, actually, you are a very smart guy, but he is not an anomaly. We have a lot of people here that have worked in every position, and that's a lot of knowledge. And really, you all know how long I've been the clerk? 13 years. And so, you get a lot of experience, because a lot of you guys have been here since I've been here. And so you have a lot of experience, so help each other out. And, look at that green sheet. I'm promising you all, and I tell you this every year, but it's obvious that a lot of the people aren't looking at these. If you look at it from the start to the end, there is really, it'll make your experience much better. Anything else? Okay.
E-slate. Quickly on the E-slate, if and this is probably more for the new people, but if you're a judge, the judge will come over here and say, add voter. You'll pick Republican or Democrat, whatever the case is. You'll say print, you're going to get a 4-digit ticket. You give that to the voter. The voter uses this to come over here and place this 4-digit number in. And it brings their ballot up, and then they will select by scrolling and hitting enter to make choices. Always tell the voter, don't leave the booth until what? Because the first time you hit cast ballot, you're going to get a summary page. Typically, you have to hit cast ballot twice, all right? Flag waves. Now, having said that, judges should also be watching this while somebody's voting over there, because you have green lights and red lights. If it's green, it's available for use. If it's red, somebody's in there with a ballot up. If those feet leave and it's still red, what do you need to do? You need to politely go over and say, hey, you didn't finish casting your ballot. Please come back and hit cast ballot after you've made all your selections. Don't leave till you see the flag waving, all right? If, for any reason, they get out the door and that's red, that means they haven't cast their ballot. What happens? 2 judges have to go over together and reach into the private screen and hit the cast ballot button to make the selection, to finalize it for them, okay? Any questions? All right, I'm done. If y'all don't have any questions, I want to just tell you, when you finish that night, the green sheet, when the last voter has voted, the last voter has voted after 6 p.m., the sheriffs will walk to the end of the voting lines, and anybody in front of the sheriff can finish voting. Anybody shows up behind the sheriff after he stands in line, he or she stands in line, they're turned away, okay? So, take your green sheet, you'll reverse the process, you're closing everything down. You still use 6 ones to close the machines down, get your private count numbers off, sign all your paperwork that needs to be signed. Now, on your green sheet in the back, and it's very specific to you, it says, what do you bring back? Precinct bag containing red official tally bag. Well, in that red official tally bag, you're going to have a checklist here that says for you to put your e-scan key in here, your e-slate, your e-scan tally envelopes with your opening and closing tapes and your MBB card, your ballot accountability statement signed and filled out, sheriff's report signed and filled out. Clerks, do not forget to do your summary page at the end of your roster books, right? Tally those up. You all do have them do that here, right? The roster book?
Summary.
Clerk's summary page? You want them doing it?
Yes.
Yes.
But if they get stuck,
Don't let that hold you up.
We can do it when we get that.
yeah.
But attempt to fill out that summary page. All you're doing is adding up how many people voted on election day, and then there's a spot, I think, for absentee, and then a total summary.
No, the absentee thing went away.
Did it? Okay. All right. Take all your signs down, pack everything up. What do we bring back? Precinct bag containing red official tally bag, ballot bag containing unused ballots, power supply, unused spoiled ballot envelopes, and supplies put in a blue precinct bag. JBC machine comes back.
It goes out, yeah, it comes to the back, and they take it outside.
That's what I thought. So bring your JBC back in the black bag with all the cables. Place the sign totem back in the bag that the clerk's office gave you. And the last one, return orange provisional ballot bag. You have no provisional ballots for this election. That's a good thing. You don't have to deal with it. Now, one other thing. Inside this, if you would, any forms that you filled out on election day, oath of voters, voter registration cards, voter assistance form, anything filled out, place it in here. All the unused ones, put them back in the supply bag. That way there is a nice clean record of everything that happened on election day right in this bag. When they process you and check you in, most of the stuff they're looking for is right in here. If anything's missing, what happens? You may have to go back and get it, or you may have to stay and fill out forms and sign stuff, all right? So take your time when you're finishing, processed, make sure everything's signed, filled out, and you brought everything back that needs to come back. The 4 of you work together to do that. Who brings this stuff back? 2 judges, okay? Any questions? Yes, sir.
What happens if no one uses this slate machine? What's the rule on that?
Okay, if nobody uses this at all, you still open it, you still close it, you still get tapes. We always get 3 tapes. The first 2 come back to the clerk's office in your respective envelopes. The third one gets posted on the outside of your precinct, but you still break the seal, take the card out, bring this machine back. Well,
No one really has to use that machine.
it's voter's choice.
But we don't really give them ballots, we hand them a ballot, right? So,
No, ma'am, no, ma'am. That is not true. You don't direct the voter, but I will tell you that very few people in this county want to use that machine. We have to have it in the polling location. It's federal law that we have that. It is, I don't like it when people call it a handicap machine. It is a voting machine that will allow anyone with any disability to be able to vote. But most people do not want it. They want that piece of paper in their hand. But we don't just hand them a ballot,
You ask.
but we don't direct them one way or the other. And that's in the book.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in practice, it seems what we do with, it seems like younger people would want it.
That's correct. Most young people like it because it's like a big cell phone to them, but I am through unless y'all have questions for me. Thank you guys.
It's not really a question, it's a statement.
Statement.
For the 3 years that I've been working, the polls that I've worked at, the judges have always said, which do you prefer?
That's, yeah,
That's how it should be.
This.
yeah.
And when they come back, well, what do you want me to use? It's your choice.
Yeah.
And in those in my precinct, we have a 40 to 50% turnout of the E-machine.
Your precinct and maybe one other, but nobody else uses them. And that's, and you know, we give the same instructions to everybody, but that's.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you step back and say it doesn't matter, it's your choice, there's enough young people in this audience as well as there's enough older people that are going to choose that. Okay, I have that choice.
And you're absolutely right. You shouldn't just hand them a ballot and assume that's what they're doing. You should say, which would you like to vote, paper or electronic?
If you just have one person, you gotta try to get another person. You don't want just one person to use that.
Yeah, she said if one person votes on it, should you get another? The answer is yes, but it's a little more difficult in the primary. If one Republican votes on it, you need a second Republican. If one Democrat, you need a second Democrat. Because remember, there's two different parties running on this machine now.
Secrecy of the ballot.
Is there a spoiled ballot version on this that you would have to record in some way?
There is, it's in your book, and the spoiled ballot on this is actually called canceling the booth. So if you engage this, let's say they're registered Republican and you inadvertently engaged it as a Democrat, you have to go in and cancel the booth and then give them a ticket that reflects what party they are. That's rare that that happens, and the way you keep from that happening is when you find out they're Republican or Democrat, it prints the ticket out. On the bottom of the ticket, it says Democrat or Republican. So you check it and make sure you let them check it. Is this the right party? Okay?
I have a question. It's probably silly, but people will come in and say, well, which is quicker? Is it okay for me to say, well, this one probably, I think this is quicker?
You have no preference. Just tell them that.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's a voter's choice.
you know, the paper ballot is faster. It is faster. But it, you know, it's just their choice. So I really appreciate everybody being willing to serve. I really do. And yes, ma'am.
New here, how do you know what your position is?
Come see me.
Okay.
And Rosalind, can you come see me too?
And if you're from Henry County, was somebody here? Make sure you come up and sign.
All right, come up.
Hold on, we got another question. Yes.
I won't know until after tonight. As of this moment, I'm one Republican short at Crestwood Baptist Church. Every other morning. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
No Sunday morning.
I should. That's a great idea. But I'll know tonight who doesn't show up, and we'll go from there.